So getting into the second part of our discussion on Deadpool versus Thanos, something that I really like about this second issue is that it actually opens up by giving us something that we haven't really seen before: the softer side of Thanos. In this section, Thanos is actually creating a letter to Mistress Death by having his computer record what he says. The reason why I like this so much is that throughout Thanos' publication history, his actions regarding life and Mistress Death herself have always been shrouded by his bravado and arrogance. What I mean here is that during stories like Infinity Gauntlet, his affections for Death were combined with his anger over the fact that she wouldn't return his love. At the end of Thanos Rising, when he rejected her after learning that she was basically leading him on, his actions were again clouded in anger. During this story, and with Death missing, in truth, Thanos is actually sad. What he tells us is that because she is absent from the universe, all forms of life are unable to die. Whether it be diseases that are curable through elimination or habitats of planets which are destroyed when a star goes supernova, all of these organisms continue to live on when they should have died, and as a result, the entire universe has been thrown into a state of chaos. However, this somber moment is short-lived when Thanos expresses his irritation that as Death's most loyal subject, when she vanished and sought help for her freedom, rather than Thanos, she called upon Wade Wilson. At this point, we switch to Deadpool as he's riding one of the Outriders under Thanos' command. To sidetrack for a second, the Outriders have appeared off and on throughout the recent stories of Marvel Comics, but for their part, the Outriders are more disposable than anything else. Where they have intriguing abilities like being able to turn themselves invisible and alter the density of their bodies to allow for flight, in truth, they're basically cannon fodder. But the discussion between Thanos and Deadpool reveals that when Thanos had monitored Wade's discussion with Mistress Death, she had made reference to something called the dwindling light. Now this is really just an example of Thanos' vast intellect coming out, and that while it would have seemed like a passing statement to Deadpool or pretty much any of us, to Thanos, it was actually a clue. Because he spent most of his life traveling the spaceways and has seen and done virtually everything in terms of exploring the cosmos, this statement of Mistress Death has led Thanos to believe that she was referencing a mining colony on a moon operated by the Shi'ar Empire, which would receive the nickname Dwindling Light due to its proximity to a local star. Now if you're interested in learning more about the Shi'ar, I have a video on their race, but during the events of Annihilation, which saw a villain from the antimatter universe called Annihilus attempting to wipe out all life in the main Marvel universe by quite literally using an army of bugs, the mining colony was basically abandoned, with all occupants either lost or leaving for parts unknown. Now picking up on Dwindling Light itself, one of the funny little quirks about this story is that Thanos is wearing a spacesuit. While this isn't extremely important, it adds to the funny nature of the story in that Thanos doesn't need to wear a spacesuit, but seeing him in one is actually pretty hilarious since he basically looks like a giant teddy bear. But what he tells us is that his research led him to this location following the clue of Mistress Death, but also because it was devoid of life. As such, this place has been touched by necromancy, which is to say, individuals experimenting with death, and while Deadpool is instructed to keep watch over the entrance and ensure their safety, he makes fun of Thanos for being friend-zoned. Now in the comments section of the last video, some of you asked the question as to why Thanos would curse Deadpool with immortality. Well, what's really cool here is that your question actually gets answered when Deadpool asks the same question. As Thanos explains, he simply just hates Deadpool. More so than that though, for Wade, his life was one of absolute misery. What I mean here is that when he originally subjected himself to the Weapon X program, it was under the intention of finding a cure for his cancer and living out a normal life. However, when the process caused his cancer to grow into abscesses all along his skin, there was no coming back, and the only thing Deadpool had truly been looking forward to was his own death. What Tim Seeley is basically doing here is telling us that once you get past Deadpool's comedy and to the heart of who he truly is, Deadpool is simply just a sad guy that wants to die. And so realizing this, Thanos basically cursed him with life and took away his ability to die as a way to cause eternal torture. However, in the midst of their explorations, the two were set upon by the Order of the Glorious End. Now this group, as far as I know, has been created explicitly for this story and we'll never actually see or hear from any of them again. But the Order of the Glorious End exists as a group of cultists who worship the idea of death. When they first arrive on the scene, they basically give us an explanation as to who they are and why they're here. What we're told is that at some point the group had begun to worship death, although we're not told why. When Thanos had picked up on the presence of death at the mining colony, this was basically registering the act of the Order of the Glorious End sacrificing half of their number and never to call death to them. However, when she arrived, the result was that she was basically kidnapped, leading to the situation as it exists now. At the same time, Tim Seeley uses the history of Thanos to tell us that because he spent his whole life bringing death and destruction down on various forms of life, He has in effect become Death's harbinger, which means that wherever he goes, life will soon end. And so recognizing this fact and seeing Thanos as a representation of death itself, the Order of the Glorious End stand down, allowing Thanos and Deadpool to continue along their way. Now, where Thanos' actions were previously a bit ambiguous, we actually get a little more information here. Because the Order of the Glorious End worshipped the idea of death and, like Thanos himself, wished to join her realm, because no one is currently able to die, he had promised the cult that when Mistress Death is restored to her rightful place, he'll return and murder them all. During this time though, one of the members named Crystal had provided Deadpool her phone number, and so before Thanos returns to kill the Order, Deadpool's request is that Thanos allows him to knock the boots with the Order member before she dies. Now what happens next is actually one of my favorite moments in the story. Because Deadpool's experience with passing on provides him with an opportunity to see Death and receive clues as to her location, when the question is asked where they should go next, Thanos responds by beating the life out of Deadpool. The reason why I love this so much is because it's funny to see Thanos absolutely pummeling Deadpool in order to both learn what they can from Mistress Death, but also for the sheer joy of it. However, in the midst of attacking Wade, the group is suddenly met with the arrival of the Guardians of the Galaxy. In our last video, we had talked about how the Guardians subdued one of the Blood Brothers who had previously worked for Thanos. Well, the reason for this was due to the fact that with Thanos and Death so closely intertwined due to his various actions over the years in attempting to gain her affections, it made sense to the Guardians that if anyone were responsible for eliminating everyone's ability to die, it would be Thanos. As a result, their search for him led to the mining colony due to the fact that Drax the Destroyer has the ability to know exactly where Thanos is in the cosmos. Something I'd also like you to notice is that during the battle between Thanos and the Guardians, Tim Seeley actually makes a mistake here. With Rocket Raccoon being tasked with ensuring that Deadpool is okay since the Guardians don't fully realize everything that's going on, when Rocket meets Deadpool for the first time and analyzes him using his wrist computer, the analysis states that Deadpool is a mutant. Now Tim Seeley could have been attempting a retcon here, or he could simply be pointing out to the idea that Deadpool is a human mutate, meaning a human with powers. But regardless, I thought this was something interesting and simply just worth pointing out. However, during the battle with the rest of the Guardians, Rocket Raccoon fails to understand everything that's going on, and as a result, believes that Deadpool's dead. And so turning his back on Deadpool, he's surprised when Wade comes back to life, and also calls for help from the Order of the Glorious End. Now, one of the most common questions from Marvel Comics fans is actually answered during a taunt from Thanos aimed at Peter Quill. While the Guardians have Thanos subdued and attempt to learn about the situation regarding why no one is dying, Thanos taunts Quill in saying that the number of times Star-Lord has died is around 2, while Thanos has only died once. The only death of Thanos occurred during his early appearances prior to Infinity Gauntlet with Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 2 in 1977 when he fought Adam Warlock and was turned to stone. Because Quill has died more often than Thanos, this is really just Thanos taking the opportunity to taunt Quill a bit and at the very least, throw him off guard and in the process, provide a window for the Order of the Glorious End to intervene. Taking the opportunity to make their escape, something that I actually thought was pretty funny, is that Deadpool asked for a piggyback ride from Thanos to the ship. Now the reason why I think this is hilarious is because we never actually see it happen, and we simply just pick up with the ship taking off and destroying the Guardians of the Galaxy ship. And so, if I were to be truthful here, I'd like to believe that Thanos provided Deadpool with a piggyback ride, because that would be amazing. However, once the two are on board, Francis, who again in the last video had been searching for Deadpool, immediately attacks him. To add some context here, Francis and Deadpool go way back. Originally, Francis was one of the attendings during Wade's time under the Weapon X project, and where the hatred developed between the two and that Francis had actually tried to kill Deadpool, once Wade made his escape and gathered his bearings, he eventually tracked Francis down and killed him. Now while Francis made his return under the name Ajax and became a main villain for Deadpool under Joe Kelly's run for about 34 issues or so, in Deadpool Volume 1 issue number 19, Wade had killed him permanently by snapping his neck. But with Mistress Death gone, Ajax has somehow reappeared and attacked Wade under orders from his boss, whose name is not revealed. And so as this section of the story wraps up, Thanos steps in by knocking Ajax through the hull of the ship and rescuing Deadpool. However, during his experience while dying on the surface of the mining colony, Deadpool was informed by Mistress Death that they need to find the man from hell, which seems to indicate that they need Francis, as his boss is likely the person who engineered the kidnapping of Mistress Death and caused this entire situation. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and let me know what you guys think about this one. This one I think was a little lackluster than the last one, but it still had some funny moments. And with that being said, I will catch you guys later. Peace.